Hey there, Leo Ascendant. How are you doing? So this is the start of the Ascendant forecast for the next 2 weeks, taking you from the 9th of August, that's the full moon in Aquarius, right the way through to the 23rd of August with the new moon in Virgo. Now, if you're new to this channel, my name is Louisa Tanner Munson. Hello. And these forecasts, I always do them with a whole sign Western tropical perspective. So what this means is there's one whole sign per house. And if you're a Placidus person like me, I prefer Placidus personally. What I recommend that you do is that you watch this forecast and then the Virgo forecast as well, because if you're a Placidus follower, you'll have Leo and Virgo in your first house. And so that's just my recommendation. But anyway, in this episode, I'm going to be looking at a whole load of things. In fact, this is such a busy time. So I'm talking about the energy of the full moon, the energy between the full moon and the new moon, and then the energy of the new moon. And I kind of see it a bit like this, that the full moon is revealing to us, it's revelatory, it's revealing the mess, our mess of being human and frail and messed up, and the masks that we've been wearing for our survival. So I really think that's the first thing that we're looking at is the masks we've been wearing, the mess that might have come up because of it, and what that's revealed to us. And then, like, we're going into the sort of post full moon period, and we're coming into a time of refining, really refining and learning what truth about yourself has become impossible to ignore. This is a big clue. If around the full moon, new patterns have come up and that you've really recognized in yourself, and you think, oh my goodness, I cannot do this anymore. This is impossible. I've got to stop. So that's the next part. We are refining our experience and making refined choices. And then the last thing, and I see this as being the rebirth. And so in truth, my status, my status is honor the mess whilst not giving up on the sacred. I really like this, that we can honor where we've been, but not give up on where we're going, not giving up on the sacred. So this is all about the rebirth. This is all about the new moon in Virgo. And so my big question to you is, what small sacred act of cleansing and reordering could help restore faith? And so these are my three key questions that I'm going to be asking throughout this particular forecast, so that at the end of this forecast you've got this like three key focus points that should help you through this whole period. So that's my aim. So it's, where has my mask been for survival? What truth about myself has become impossible to ignore, and what small sacred act can help restore faith? So really, really big themes there. In this reading, I'm going to be looking at two particular charts, both of them from the perspective of somebody with Leo Ascendant. The first one is the full moon chart, and then the second one is the new moon chart. But before I bring these up, I just want to say a big thank you to everybody that sponsors this channel, whether it's historically, whether it's current, and whether it's through membership as well. I've got two communities. However you're helping my channel, I just really thank you so much, because you've really changed my whole experience of having a channel on YouTube. And I love the fact that each week, every time I'm doing one of these shows, there are more and more names. So thank you so very much. Okay, so these are our three questions. And again, this is my statement about this rebirth. It's revealed, refined, rebirth, honor the mess whilst not giving up the sacred. So let's look at this more closely. So right off the bat, you can see that you can clearly see that this full moon in Aquarius is in a very, very sensitive position for you. Obviously, the sun is in your own sign. It's in the first house, which is really, most usually a quite glorious time. With the sun in the first house, it's really bringing light to your personality. It's really showing people who you are. It's very easy to shine when the sun is shining in, this very first house. But the moon at the time of the full moon is absolutely bringing the energy of emotionalism into your partnerships. And so this is, the two most important places, I think, for full moons in terms of making change is the first and seventh houses, this polarity here. And then you've got the fourth and 10th house polarities. These are the angular houses. And when there's a full moon or a new moon in these houses, they do definitely get our attention. They're a lot more, they're strong in their effect for sure. And so this particular full moon, and I've spoken about it in the previous batch of forecasts and also in a separate full moon in Aquarius forecast as well. So I'm not going to labor on too much about that, because really I'd like to take you by the hand really and talk you through how we're getting to this new moon in Virgo and what that might mean to you. But suffice to say, the starting point is, I think, a place of tension in terms of your relationship to yourself and also your relationship to other people and how you feel perceived by them. It's not the only opposition you've got through these houses. You've also got this Mercury retrograde in opposition to Pluto. And I just want to say, on the 11th of August, I'm going to be releasing a Mercury Direct video for your sign, talking about how things might move forwards when Mercury goes direct on the 11th. But if you carry on watching to the end of this video, there'll be it'll all be set up to go straight to that particular one. So you don't have to wait until next week when it's released. It's there for you to get a sneak preview of. So that might also be helpful. But, Mercury in your first house in this, this retrograde, is showing that you've been rethinking your position. You've been rethinking, who am I? What's my persona? Especially given, that the full moon is about unmasking. I really do think there are some very big themes of having a persona right now. And, I think many of us are outgrowing our persona. If you think about how quickly the world is changing right now, I think that's why we're outgrowing our personas, and maybe we don't need them anymore. Maybe there's something more true, that's much closer to the core of who we are. I think there's a new reality that's emerging. It's an emergence, you could say. But yes, you've got very slow moving Pluto in the 7th, and just before the full moon as well, the moon makes a conjunction with Pluto, and of course I say just before, it's well over a day before, but it's in the run up to this full moon. The moon makes a conjunction with Pluto that really raises that feeling of intensity. And so as that full moon comes into its culmination, it's a really, really tight feeling. Now, this full moon is also creating another two oppositions. The full moon isn't, but on the day of the full moon, Mars is exactly in an opposition to Saturn and also exactly in an opposition to Neptune. And these are going across the 3rd and the 9th houses. Now, these aren't so, every house is important, but they're not so difficult to navigate. The 3rd house, where Mars is a place, I think, of where we might normalize. It's usually quite a busy house. It's where we've grown up. It really reminds us of our school, our peers, our siblings, the sort of environment and community space that we grew up in, and all of their belief patterns. A lot of our behaviors and our personality are formed in this place, and also even more personally in the part of the 4th house, which is about the home. But this is very much about our early attempts at socialization and what we've carried through into our adulthood. And, up here in the 9th house, it's completely the opposite. So this is what's formed, what's normal, the sort of narrative that we've got, running. It's a place of safety. It's a place where we know what's going on. It's a local place. And up here, it's foreign, it's far away, it's unknown, it's not learnt, it's a much sort of higher learning level. And so, this is interesting. This Mars down here is really wanting you to take action at a local level. It's really encouraging you to dive into your old set of learnings, your old behavior patterns. It's really helping you to form a much greater sense of belonging to the community you've come from. And then Saturn and Neptune up here in the 9th are really sort of encouraging you to spread your wings and fly. Neptune is about bringing heaven to earth, and Saturn is grounding it. But what are you grounding it on? You're grounding it in a place that's unfamiliar to yourself. You're grounding it in a place that seems foreign. Maybe it has a different language. You're probably learning a new skill set completely, because this is a place of higher learning. And so there's a real strong challenge there. So at the time of this full moon, where your identity is, I think, in question, you're changing your identity, you're dropping a mask that you've been holding on to, and you're feeling really quite triggered, most likely by the people in your life. And they're probably also wondering why you're going through these significant changes. At the same time, it feels like there's this pull to study something that's really taking you out of that known space, where you might be king. The Leo ascendant energy really carries that element of royalty, that feeling of, oh, here I am, I've arrived. And yet, in this space up here where it feels like there's something for you to develop and grow, it just feels completely unknown. And I think that's going to bring up some tension, possibly some fear, because this is a very, very adventurous part of your chart. And yet the planet, one of the planets that might have to do with adventure and taking action, which is Mars, is completely the opposite. So this is a time of potential conflicts. But then when we look at where the moon is coming from here, it's moving all the way around here in 2 weeks. This new moon is very, very strong. Now, I should say, if you want to know more about the moon phase we're in, and also the sort of exact patterns of everything, what they might mean, all of these different aspects, then you might want to check out, the full astrology scoop. It's a different episode. So it's a full on astrology scoop view of all of these aspects and the moon phase we're in, to sort of give it some much bigger context. And if you want to have a look at that, you can check it out in the link above. This particular new moon is really, really strong. There's a yod pointing towards it. This is also known as a finger of fate or a finger of God, but it's pointing right at this new moon, suggesting that there's a new area for you to focus on. Now, I would say, that this is a kind of one-time event, but actually the next new moon is on the 23rd of September, and it's also in the sign of Virgo. So you've got one here in the sign of Virgo, and then one here a month later in the sign of Virgo. This one's an eclipse, by the way. And this is highlighting the second house, which is about your resources, your money plans, how you earn money. It's also about how you value yourself. So it's a really important part of your chart. And to have just one new moon every year in the second house is a boost. It really boosts up your ability to see your career from a completely different perspective and to really think about how you can receive more. But you've got 2 prompts here. So this is indeed, I would say, a special month between new moon to new moon. The whole focus is on there. And I think the sooner you get working on it, the better, because the conditions are actually quite good in this first new moon. You do have an exact square to Uranus, which is going to make it a little bit choppier and a little bit more spontaneous and deeply inventive and regenerative. And it's going to be original and wacky. So there's going to be a lot of extra information feeding into this. This information is coming from networks, from different work opportunities, through friends of friends. To me, it feels like through your contacts and your contacts of contacts and so on and so forth, things are going to grow quite quickly and in a surprising manner. So you might find you are contacted by people that you had no idea existed, or you might be surprised at, like, why would they want to get involved? Why would they want to do some sort of co-creation with me? And yet there is a much bigger pattern behind it all that you maybe don't yet see. So I do think there are some surprises coming forwards that could really help you form a whole new part, a whole new arm to what it is that you do. To me, this is very special, really special. But it's a bit shocking, because Uranus is absolutely there to kind of awaken you, and it's an aliveness, isn't it? It is bringing things back to life in a very sort of strong way. But this finger of Yod, these 2 quincunxes, from the sun and the moon to Pluto, and the sun and the moon to Saturn and Neptune, they are very, very strong and not easy to reconcile. But let me like try and understand it. If you do want to learn about yods, by the way, I have got a yod episode. If you've got a yod in your chart, for instance, if you just look in the search function under my channel page and type in yod, it will definitely bring it up. I think there's 2 there. But yeah, Pluto in the 8th is really showing, the 7th is really showing a series of really strong people, really strong, resolute people in your life, powerful people in your life. And so through your relationship with powerful people in your life, you might be, I don't know, inspired or moved or encouraged, heartily encouraged to follow up on something. So to me, it feels like there are lots of clues coming to you from very powerful people in your life. It's not necessarily comfortable. Powerful people aren't always nice people, but there are powerful connections that are kind of nudging you along, possibly reluctantly, but it's a big, strong nudge all the same. And then you've got Saturn and Neptune in the 9th house, and their energy, I think, is to really encourage you to come out of your shell, even though you've got Leo ascendant, which, traditionally doesn't mean to say you're in your shell, but there's this emphasis to kind of push you beyond what you're comfortable with, push you way beyond your skill set, your comfort in what you know. To me, there is a need to upgrade your skills quite quickly. And, Neptune here is here to sort of help you awaken to a sort of connection to oneness and to consider, everything is possible, everything's connected, everything is starting to fall into place. And Saturn here is to show you, yes, there's a lot of hard work, but not to say it's impossible. To me, there's an invitation for you to study. There's an invitation to you to take life a bit more seriously. This is also a place that is really helpful for content creators, because it's a place of obviously learning and refining, and keeping up to date with things. But it's also a place where writers do well, and broadcasters and teachers, anyone that's got a high context message with a Leo ascendant forecast, they're going to be doing a lot. They're going to be doing very well, but they absolutely have to manage their time, and they have to dedicate time, and they have to dedicate effort, and be very disciplined. So there's this kind of push to be disciplined and to study, which is, it's a massive nudge. And also there's a big nudge from powerful people. And so it just feels like there was only ever going to be one answer. And that answer was that you're going to re-look at your values about yourself and what you value about yourself and how you can earn more money based on the value you're bringing the world. So to me, there is this very strong new motivation, and it's come because of the discomfort that you get when you come up against something. Through following your passions, you're coming up against your own lack of wisdom, your own lack of energy and experience, and it's pushing you beyond that. And you're also coming up not against, but you're rubbing shoulders with people that have a lot of power, and it's going to rub off. So yes, it might be a bit uncomfortable, but this is a really good place to be. And by the time the next new moon comes along, that new moon's going to be slap bang in an opposition to Saturn and Neptune. So I advise you work it now and start regenerating at least how you think about your money, and at least how willing you are to receive money and to receive blessings, and to be an open stream of reception. I've just answered for you one of the questions. It's just popped in my mind. What small sacred act of cleansing and reordering could help me restore faith in myself? Well, it clearly just came straight into my head. I would say do this in the way that works for you. So you might change some of the words that I'm using and some of the imagery that I'm using. But really what I see is you coming into a grounded position, coming into a place where you can use your imagination or meditation, a guided meditation. But do you imagine that your body is a field of energy? You allow your field of energy to grow, to spread, and you can make it as big as you want. You can make it bigger than your house, bigger than your city, bigger than the country, bigger than the world. It's entirely up to you. You can also shrink it down and make it really, really small as well. And that could also be fun in a different context. But as you're making it bigger, just imagine everything can flow through you. All of your good can flow through you. And it might not be comfortable, but of course, the bigger you get, the easier it is for things to flow through you. I mean, where is all the money in the world right now? Well, it's just wherever it was left. There's money all over the place, and we use physical money, and most of us also use electronic money as well. And so if you can imagine those flows coming through your body, if you want to look at a really good exercise to do with this, check out the work of Access Consciousness, like Dr. Dane here. He talks, and also another one of the Access Consciousness teachers, I can't remember her name, can't remember her name, an Australian lady, very good, very, very compelling. But, what I would also imagine is just the flow of reception. Most of us are in this flow outward where we're giving, and there's a discomfort with receiving. Now, if you were to contemplate your breath, you have to, if you try to just give your breath and nothing else, you're just going to die, because you can't just exhale and stay like that without that absolutely necessary in-breath. There has to be a balance, and where that's out of balance, that's showing you how things are going to kind of be. Well, how you're coming out of the flow of reception. And of course, when you're out of the flow of receptivity, you're out of the flow of life. To me, this is a whole exercise. However you do this with any imagery, this is a flow that actually has some laws to do with it. I mean, I used to enjoy creating kombucha and working with water kefir, and given the right conditions, that stuff will stay alive forever. If you create the right conditions, you feed it the right things, it's not going to die. And in fact, what it's going to do is multiply and multiply and multiply exponentially. Like if I like gardening as well, and if you've got annual plants, annual flowers and things, you'll get a seed head, and every plant will create exponential amounts, like 200 seeds, say, or 500, depending on the particular species. You'll get more than the actual plant itself, and then exponentially every single seed that grows. And so the more you're able to receive and give and take, and get into the flow of it, the more you're creating for yourself. When I look at life, I see the abundance of it. And I see that the world is meant to be abundant. But of course, if you're denying yourself the reception of something, then you're coming out of the laws of abundance. You've got to get back into those laws to be able to get it working, you see? So the way I see this is use your imagination to imagine things coming in. You might find journaling is quite helpful. So in terms of what sacred act can you do to cleanse and reorder and help you restore faith in yourself, it's about receiving. This is where these next 2 new moons, including a solar eclipse, are going to be placed. They are coming to help you receive more. And this is another aspect of this, is you might want to receive more in terms of self-esteem. So you might want to experience a feeling of gratitude and thanks coming towards you. Imagine, how it's okay to accept somebody's thanks, accept somebody's compliments. So they actually come into you, you feel them, you sit with them. My husband, because I'm not so good at this myself, he will encourage me to sit and read the comments that come in underneath my videos, and to sit with them and to feel them. Really feel them, and sometimes it brings me to tears. So thank you if you are one of these people that leaves these lovely comments. So it's important to receive and get used to that, because these 2 new moons are going to be rebirthing, which is one of the key themes here, rebirthing your ability to be in the flow of abundance. And I can't think of a better way to experience your life, in fact, than to celebrate the natural abundance that you're born into. I think life lies to us. I think we hear about polarity, we hear about poverty, but like when you do see plants growing freely, even without the help of humans, we think we're somehow instrumental in helping nature do its thing. But actually, if we left nature to its own devices, it would be fine without us. It is an abundant system, and we are living here in this abundant system. So it's like, feel the energy of it. That was a bit of a rant. So, and I think if you can do that, and then some of the this discomfort that might come from people that are pushing you, these powerful people giving you a little nudge to take action. And then also this sense of, I don't actually know enough. I fear I'm not going to be able to expand enough. That fear is going to disappear, because once you're in the flow of abundance, you're in a place of self-belief. You're in a place of reduced doubt. You're really coming back into yourself. So enjoy that. That's for you. I love these days here between the 10th and the 12th. These are very, very strong energies. I'm just going to flick back to the previous chart. So, wow, I really went on one there. I didn't think this was going to be as long as it is. We've got this lovely Mars Pluto trine, also with Uranus, that's very, very strong, that really exact at that time. And the sextile between Uranus and Saturn is beautiful. It's all highlighting high level changes for you. But this, I think, is by far the best aspect in this whole 2 weeks, is this Venus conjunction to Jupiter. These are the two benefics. These are the two planets that are here to prosper us and help us get into the flow. And these coming together and also connecting to the North Node in the 8th house, it's reprogramming your private mind. It's reprogramming your instincts. It's programming you for a feeling of optimism, a feeling of generosity in yourself, and a feeling of ease and grace. So this is a very, very powerful time. There's a couple more things I just want to mention before I want to link it back in. And one of these great days that I really wanted to point out was on the 19th of August. That's the day when the sun, which is your ruling planet, is making a trine to Chiron. I don't actually have it listed in, you can't see it in these charts, but essentially it's just before the sun goes into Virgo. That's my last one. But the sun, your ruling planet, in a trine to Chiron, is this revelation time. To me, this is you really feeling the experience of the learning you've been through and really feeling it in a new context. You know, it's like, and you might have gone through a healing process many times before, but to me, this is when it really sticks, when you really feel that I've got it. I really have it. And you can now use it as an experience that other people can learn from. To me, it's a feeling of like generous relief. So I do think the 19th is very strong. And then as the sun moves into Virgo, it's moving your experience on into this sense of your self-worth and revaluing yourself. So this is a very important time. So going back to these questions, I've answered the last one, but where has my mask been for survival? What would I prefer to express? Okay. So looking back here, I think you've had a mask on, most likely, in terms of other people. I think maybe I actually think you've had a mask about your own sovereignty for quite a long time, and I don't think that's a mistake, by the way. I think you should wear a mask of sovereignty, but actually to me it feels like there are people sort of challenging you because maybe the mask about how sovereign you've been hasn't been as authentic as it really is. So what I think is you've, especially with Pluto coming into the 7th house, to me, that's a huge indication that you might be seeing power in other people, but not seeing your own power. I always think these planets that come into the 7th house are showing us what we've yet to learn. or what we can't see in ourselves, but we can abundantly see in everyone else. So to me, any mask that you've worn that's shown your power is false, because you've thought of yourself as powerful in the wrong way. You really are powerful, but you don't yet see it. And so I really think that anywhere where you are over-egging yourself, kind of forcing yourself to feel powerful, that's the mask to drop. And then when you see and appreciate power in other people, you might ask yourself, well, how am I actually doing that? Because I really think what we're seeing in other people is often the things that we can't see in ourselves, because that's why we notice it as different. We think, oh, that's a new pattern, but it's one that we've always got. And so that's how I think you come into your true pattern. And that's how I think you'll feel a lot more natural. And of course, when you feel a lot more natural, you'll probably be a lot easier. It'll be a lot easier for you to receive money and to receive goodness. What truth about myself has become impossible to ignore? Such a good question. Okay, so I think there's a learning here in terms of your relationships with other people. I think one of the things that you've learned about yourself, one of the things that is becoming impossible to ignore, and that is your need to connect with people. Now, you've got Uranus here at the moment, and Uranus is going to be around this part of your chart for another 7-8 years. And so Uranus in this 11th house is opening you up to a whole heap of new people, networks on networks on networks on networks. But I think one of the things that maybe you have, one truth that has become impossible to ignore is that you're meant to be sort of experiencing networks and connections with people far outside of what you're comfortable with. I think, with a Leo perspective, you're so used to sort of shining your energy in your way, and you don't really always challenge yourself. And so I think this is the thing that is impossible to ignore, is how you actually do need to be challenged quite a bit. Saturn here is pushing you beyond your comfort zone to learn. You can't rest on your laurels anymore. And Uranus here is asking you to connect with people who are going to challenge you and probably be quite spontaneous and be quite fun and quite weird and quite wacky. I guess you're being stretched outside. The sun is the biggest planet, in our solar system. Obviously, it's not a planet; it's the star. But the sun is this sort of radiant energy that stretches so far. And yet, what you might find really hard, I guess the reality is you haven't stretched as far as you could. And maybe that's because you're afraid to shine. And so now, and I really think this new moon in the second house is going to push you to shine. And I think it's about time. So I'm going to leave that there. Remember, if you keep watching, the video will move on to the Mercury retrograde. It's only 3 or 4 minutes, and it will give you some intel as to what Mercury is going to be teaching you going forwards. So if you found that useful, yay. And also, if you find it useful and you would like even more from me, I do fortnightly forecasts for my members of my communities. So there's a relationship and connection forecast. There's also an ambition, money and career forecast. And I also do Monday to Friday forecasts just about the general energy. If you think that would give you a useful heads up, then please do check out my community offerings in the description below. I also do an even bigger community that also has hangouts where we are talking about different parts of our charts, and we're learning about our charts together. And so it's a place to learn and grow astrologically. Got a really lovely sort of core team of people now who come, and we're all sort of learning from each other's charts. So if that's the kind of energy that you would love to be in, also check out that. So anyway, stay tuned. This one's coming up.